Change of plans. Honestly, that's been the name of the game here in 2020. It feels like you just get started doing one thing and you got to modify it and change it. I am so tired of seeing the words postponed and canceled on everything. And here we are at the beginning of December, and I was just thinking, what is it that's going to bring us together during this holiday season when we can't have the traditional family parties and holiday gatherings and concerts that we normally go to? What's going to make it feel like Christmas? And then I started to think about the core story that we celebrate. It's the story of Jesus' birth. And that doesn't change. That's the same. And if you think about it, each one of those persons who were involved in that story, from Mary and Joseph and the wise men and the shepherds, well, they all had a change in their plans to welcome the birth of Christ. And it's really in their stories that we see the hope that Jesus came to bring. Hope in the darkest of times and in the most surprising of ways. And actually, the story begins all the way back in the Old Testament with the prophet Isaiah. And the people of God in Isaiah's time, they were going through a huge time of struggle and hardship. Like us, they couldn't go to the temple and worship when they wanted to. They were experiencing times of disease. They were in political turmoil and upheaval. And while they might not have had a daily, case total on their news every night, it was a very difficult and dark time. And in the midst of that struggle, in the midst of that turmoil and political invasion, that was the moment that God gave this promise to the prophet Isaiah. And I want to share that with you today. It's Isaiah chapter 9. I'm going to just read those words for you. He says, "Nevertheless, there will be no more gloom for those who are in distress. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned." And then verse 6, "For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and he will be called the Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace." It was this hope, this promise that came in the midst of some very difficult days. That the people wouldn't have to continue to be in darkness, that a light was coming, that a child was coming who was going to set everything straight. And I imagine Isaiah asking God, really? You're going to send us a child? Like, we need a mighty warrior. We need somebody who can lead us into battle. And he had to trust in God's plan that this baby Jesus, would become the Savior of the world. It was the hope of this Messiah that would keep them going from generation to generation. It's like the hope that I have that a vaccine is coming. I can't wait, for that to be a time where we can get back together with family and friends and do all the things that we want to do. But ultimately, the hope that keeps me going, well, that hope is found in baby Jesus. For that is the very heart of Christmas. It is the promise of hope in a very difficult time. And it is the hope that keeps us going. I remember a time when I had the opportunity to be a voice of hope for a young couple. They called me. It was late at night. It was right before I was going to bed. "Pastor, we need to talk to you. It's really urgent." And so we got together early the next morning, and I said, "What's wrong?" And they shared the heartbreaking story that there had been a breach of trust in their relationship with each other. And they asked the question, "Pastor, can our marriage be saved?" And I looked right at him and I said, "The answer to your question is a resounding yes. Yes. I have watched time and again that Christ, by the power of his love and forgiveness, can mend hearts back together again. And it's going to take some hard work, and it's going to take the rebuilding of trust. It's going to take some counseling. But I have seen it happen, and I believe that it can happen for you. As you simply trust Christ, that he can make your marriage stronger than it's ever been." And they did, and they put the hard work in, and they began to rebuild that marriage one brick at a time. And what I want to ask you in these days, in these difficult days, is that you too would be a voice of hope. A voice of hope for your kids and for your spouse and for your family and your friends and your neighbors. There are all kinds of negative voices out there. We hear them all the time. But I want to encourage you to be that voice of hope so that people can keep going. That promise of that there is a day coming and it will get better. That really is the heart of Christmas. And that's how we bring people together, and that's how we make Christmas what it is. Because it was a message of hope in a very difficult time. So hug your kids, tell them, there is a day coming when sports are going to be back and they're going to be able to see grandma again and whatever it is that they care about. But that is the message and the miracle of Christmas. And that does not change. He came to give us hope so that we too would be hope for each other. And that's what we can do in these days. Well, I'm going to be back every Wednesday with a little bit like this. Next week, we're going to talk about Mary and how God changed her plans in her life in her faith story. So I hope you have a great day. Just want to encourage you to like this or comment or share with a friend who also needs a word of hope in these days.